And we are live. Here we are. GMA Beyond the Fight Episode 5. Gods of Martial Arts is a very unique and the only one in the world MMA promotion that truly celebrates ancient martial arts traditions while treating fighters as celebrities. This is beyond the fight because we look at every single aspect behind this beautiful thing that we call mixed martial arts. And today we have a very special guest, coming all the way from Israel. He was formerly on the Jiu-Jitsu national team, Belfer.
How's it going, my friend?
Very good, very good. And you've been in Vietnam for how long?
Well, I've been here for about a week, more so, and I'm very, very excited to be here. This is absolutely a beautiful country and a beautiful place you have us here.
Yes.
This is actually one of the most special gyms that I've seen throughout my travels. It's a very kind of a traditional vibe. I don't know if you can hear this, but we got some water bubbling right next to us.
Yes.
Right next to like a kind of a traditional looking MMA ring, and it's a very special place. Very cool. Thanks for having me.
Yes, absolutely. Thanks for being on the show.
My absolute pleasure.
This is Lean Foam Training Center.
Yeah.
And this has been here for, 7-8 years or so. And this was, this is the special project with Johnny Trudeau, and comes from a very traditional martial arts family, and just came here to build this community where the fighters live and train here. So
this is also the venue for the actual events of the Gods of Martial Art, correct?
It is the venue.
Very cool.
It is the venue, but they also use other venues.
Very nice.
So this is the main venue, and this is the headquarters, right? And then they also have some of the bigger events, some of the ones closer to the end
Very
of
cool.
the year.
Yeah.
And at the Grand Hotel.
Nice. Those are kind of cool
which
places.
is just about 2 hours from here.
Nice. So I just want to say that you've sent me some videos. Unfortunately, I'm probably not going to be here for the next live event.
Yeah.
But what I did see in the videos is that was very, very, very high production value, quite
Yes.
similar to what we're doing right here.
Yes.
It was Hollywood-esque.
Yes.
It was very
Yes.
high production value. What you were saying, where they treat the fighter like celebrities,
Yes.
it's extremely cool. And to be honest, I've seen very few promotions around the world that do that.
Yeah.
I like it a lot.
Yeah, thank you. We're very proud of that, and I'm proud to be a part of this. Have you ever been to a live MMA show?
Oh yeah, quite a few.
Yeah.
We've had, even back home, we've had quite a few live shows. And I've had the pleasure to be coaching some fighters in some live shows, the south of the United States, for example.
Yep.
Some places in Europe. I was coaching some people, some places in Israel. It was a lot of fun. But never have I seen something like this. It's quite special to have like a kind of an Asian temperament to a training place like this. It's very special.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're someone who really focuses. You do the woodworking and things like that, and you would notice some of the details more so than others, such as myself.
I mean, it's a very unique look to everything. Most gyms have kind of a how would you call it, like an industrial kind of look.
Mm-hmm.
You have the mats, you have the punching bags.
Yeah.
I don't know if you can even see this, but there's a bamboo punching bag, which is probably the first time in my life where I've seen something like this.
Yes, it's actually, they kick that.
Yeah.
They kick it to
That's incredible.
to harden their shins, and I've kicked it a few times, but not too many because it hurts.
It hurts like a maniac, I'm sure. I
But
cannot imagine.
when these fighters kick this, it just echoes through the neighborhood.
Very cool, man.
So, yeah, it's very interesting. So,
So we wanted to talk.
yeah. So here you are. You've been, you grew up in Israel,
Yes, sir.
and you were in the military, and then somehow that led to your martial arts journey in jiu-jitsu. You wanted to kind of talk about that.
Yeah. So for us, it's mandatory to do the army. We have to do 3 years. I went through my 3 years in the army from 2007 to 2010. This was actually my first exposure to the worlds of martial arts.
Okay.
As much as Thailand has Muay Thai, Israel is known for their Krav Maga. That was my first exposure to martial arts, to the world of martial arts. I was fortunate enough to take an instructor's course to teach other soldiers basically the art of Krav Maga. After I got released from the army, I basically told myself that I'm looking to start training martial arts. I started my humble journey with something that's called, freely translated into street defense, which is a combination of mixed martial arts and Krav Maga. And my first real steps in the world of mixed martial arts, and specifically Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, occurred when I started my world travels.
Yes.
So it's very common once you get out of the army to kind of start traveling the world. I started my journeys in South America.
Yes.
So basically I did most of South America from the north all the way to the south.
Yes.
And in my mind, I had this idea where I wanted to dedicate a large portion of my trip to training martial arts.
Yes.
And I was very fortunate to find my chance in Ecuador.
Okay.
Which
city in Ecuador?
Sorry?
Which city?
I was in a place called Valle de los Chelios.
Okay.
Valle de los Chelios is right outside of Quito,
Okay.
one of the biggest cities in Ecuador. And I was very fortunate. I was just roaming between gyms,
Yes.
quite the beginner. I had 6 or 7 months of training martial arts under my belt. And I ended up finding this wonderful guy. I was 22 at the time. He was 24 or 25.
Yeah.
Very high level mixed martial arts fighter. And we became very good friends, like sometimes happens. And for about an hour and a half from the moment I met the guy, I had a room for $100 a month.
What?
I had a gym that cost me around 20 or $30 a month, if I remember correctly. And there were 4 or 5 training sessions a day that I could choose from. Which ones am I going to? I ended up staying there for around 7 months, training around 3 times a day. So this was my life. I would wake up, we had training session at 10 a.m., some afternoon rest, maybe a meal, and then a double training in the evening. And this was basically my life and the beginning of the seriousness of my martial arts journey.
Yes.
I was very fortunate back at the time. I was fully training MMA. I also had my first amateur fight, my first amateur mixed martial arts fight.
How was that? And so until then, how many years have you been training?
I was training for 9 months.
Okay. Wow.
I was training for 9 months when I had my first MMA fight.
Okay.
I was young and stupid, you might say that. I had no medical insurance, no nothing. My teacher went like, "Do you want to fight?" I say, "Heck yeah, I want to fight."
You were wearing the 4-ounce gloves?
Yes, sir. 4 ounce.
Wow.
No shin guards, no headgear.
Wow. Okay.
Just 4 ounce gloves, in a like wrestling ring. So like a fake wrestling ring where everything is like super bouncy.
Oh, wow.
So this was the venue.
Okay.
It was full of Ecuadorians. I was probably, I was the only foreigner fighting in that promotion.
Yes.
And I was blacked out. This was
What?
basically my first competition, not drunk blackout, just like mentally. I was super stressed.
Oh, you mean before?
I mean,
the fight?
during the fight, before
the
the fight, I was very, very nervous. Imagine having literally your first
Yeah.
competition ever, an MMA fight,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And
it's-
so I was quite stressed out. I ended up winning that fight by TKO.
Wow. Congratulations.
Thank you.
That is an interesting story.
It is a fun story as well. And at the end of that fight, I ended up getting my blue belt in Jiu-Jitsu
Excellent.
from Fernando Saluso from Alliance Ecuador.
Okay. Wow.
Alliance is one of the biggest associations in the world for Jiu-Jitsu.
Of course.
And that really made a significant point in my martial arts journey. And
Wow, interesting. Didn't expect that.
I felt like after my time there, I really had in my mind that I want to deal with martial arts for the rest of my life, basically. So it was a very significant moment for me. And from there, I continued the tradition of traveling and training wherever I went,
Okay.
competing both MMA and Jiu-Jitsu in several places in South America.
Yes.
And it was man, I can tell you this opened up my mind and my soul and my heart.
Yeah.
To this day, I have multiple friends in South America. I'm still waiting to go back there. Haven't, unfortunately, but
Yeah.
it will happen sometime soon.
What's your headquarters in South America? I say.
So, obviously, my main thing is Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu.
Yeah, yeah.
So, in Ecuador, to this day, I have friends that I keep in touch with. Wonderful, wonderful people. I love these guys. You know, we've bled on the mats together. We've fought together. These are bonds that you keep for the rest of your life. I have a lot of friends in Brazil as well.
Yes.
After I ended up my time in South America, went back home, came back to Brazil, came back to live in Brazil, and ended up being just over a year in Rio de Janeiro.
Yeah.
I ended up learning Portuguese in about 4 or 5 months.
Very good, very good.
I was sleeping in an apartment not a lot bigger than the small studio that we're staying in right now, with 5 other Brazilians who don't speak a word of English.
Yep.
Above me was blue belt world champion. Next to me, purple belt world champion.
Yes.
High level brown belt, and some people that were interchangeable within the apartment. And yeah, that was incredible, to be honest.
Excellent.
That was really like an immersion in the jiu-jitsu lifestyle.
Yes.
Again, training 3 times a day.
Yeah, Rio is. Have not been to Brazil yet. Spent time in, a few years in South America, but
Where have you been?
mainly I lived in Dominican Republic for a little bit, and then
Nice.
Medellin, Colombia.
Colombia
for
has
about
this
a
in
year and a
jiu-jitsu.
half. There, I mean, it's pretty good. I mean, they're had many instructors, one of which was from Rio.
Yeah.
And I would just go to him, and we would do like 1 hour privates. But I was like, hey, let's just do an hour of rolling, like nonstop. And I would just do that once a week, just to kind of diversify my jiu-jitsu, right? And we would go like 50 or 60% for 1 hour. No, you can't even drink water. And so we did that, and then I trained with some MMA teams, stuff like that.
Nice. Did you compete in South America?
Yeah, a few times. And
So you can tell the competitions in South America are very different than competitions in North America.
yeah,
The energy in the room, especially in Brazil, when you have
Yes.
people fighting, the energy is just incredible.
Yes.
You go up to fight, somebody catches like some sort of a submission, you hear the audience starts chanting, "Ui, vai dormir, ui, vai
Yeah.
dormir," which is send him to sleep. Send him to sleep. Yeah. So the crowd
incredible.
is chanting like send him to sleep.
That's
the,
really cool.
The kind of energy that's very hard to reproduce in North America, where everything is a bit more
Yes,
polite
it's-
and like.
Well, I think in North America, just from the very limited experience I've only been in the game for 4.5 years. It's just industrialized, I guess. It's just you go to IBJJF's competition, and
You pay $100 per.
sometimes $200.
Yeah.
You know. So,
Yeah.
Like jiu-jitsu. I went to Jiu-Jitsu Con, and and
Add-
it's run like a business. They don't even let you fight for 3rd place.
Right.
You know what I mean? And that saves a little bit of money, but they have it down, and they are on time, and the mats are nice, and you're gonna have a Brazilian as your referee most likely.
Yeah.
But it doesn't create an environment. If you're watching a world finals match, you don't really know,
Right.
but because there's 55 mats. It's not like there's one
Yeah.
mat for the world championships.
So I feel like in some venues, in some events, especially the Brazilian crowd will go crazy. So when you have lots of Brazilians in
Yeah.
Masters World or ADCC or some of these bigger
Yeah,
events, you'll see teams like jumping and cheering for their competitor,
Yeah.
especially for the bigger names. That is very exciting.
Yes, for sure. And in Brazil, I imagine it's more
That's
like
absolutely
that.
crazy. So like I had my time in Brazil there. I lived there for about 9 months or 10 months. I can't remember exactly. Again, this was just like really the jiu-jitsu lifestyle. Staying in this tiny apartment
Yeah.
with, learning Portuguese, training 3 times a day, competing every other weekend. That was the biggest thing for me. And this was where I really kind of got to experience something that very few people do. This is the dream for every person that does jiu-jitsu,
Yes.
is to go live in Brazil,
Yeah.
immerse yourself in Portuguese,
Yeah.
immerse yourself in the jiu-jitsu lifestyle,
Yeah.
and really, as far as I'm concerned, that was living the dream, you know? I had a
Yes.
Brazilian girlfriend, I had a
Yeah,
lot of
yeah.
Brazilian friends. This was the life.
Yes.
And,
And how long were you in Rio?
So I was there for about 9 months.
Okay.
Yeah, I
Okay.
was there for about 9 months until I ran out of money.
Yeah. And it's mainly gi there. Is that correct?
It's mainly gi for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, I would say 80% of the training that we had was gi.
Okay.
And then, so I was training there in Alliance HQ. So Alliance, same team that I was training with in Ecuador.
Yes.
They're also part of the team why I joined up with Alliance in Rio.
Yes.
Some of the friends that I had back in Ecuador were also coming to Rio, and they're the ones who got me to this apartment. They're the ones
Okay,
who got
got
me
it.
to this environment. So I was training with Alliance in Rio. It's the HQ of Alliance, basically.
Yeah.
I think it's considered to be top 5 academies in the
Yeah.
world.
I think I've been, when I was living in Colombia, some friends have told me to go to this alliance
Mm-hmm.
in Rio. And I was actually going to go and live in Brazil, but I ended up coming back here to Vietnam. But
So it's incredible because what you get there, you get a training mat with 15, 20 black belts
yes.
in every class. And some of these black belts are world class. Some of these black belts are world champions. You get world champion blue belts, purple belts, brown belts. Everybody on this mat, it's a mat full of killers.
Yeah,
Very few
exactly.
places around the world you're gonna get this amount of talent
For
in a
sure.
single room every training session, right?
Exactly. Yes.
So that's something that's absolutely incredible.
Yes.
And to be able to be on such a powerful mat every day for
Yeah.
months on time, I feel like it's the ability to like improve as rapidly as you
Yes.
can, especially as a young blue belt,
Of
which I
course.
was at the time.
Yeah.
It was a lot of
And
fun.
the gi is really emphasized there, and it's probably a great place to really learn your gi
Yes,
skills.
absolutely.
Would you agree?
So, like I said, a large percentage of the training was in the gi. A lot of the competitions are in the gi.
Okay.
Some of the local competitions don't even have a no gi division. So
Okay.
most competitions that we know from North America have gi and no gi, especially IBJJF, for example.
Yep.
You have
Yeah, of
gi, you
course.
have no gi.
Well,
of course,
I
you
mean-
pay for both.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, IBJJF is starting to get more and more no gi.
True.
I mean, it's not as much as like ADCC is
What-
only no gi.
When I was competing a lot of IBJJF,
Yes.
for example, when you compete worlds, you would have triple the amount of competitors in the gi than you would in the no gi,
Of course, yeah.
right?
Yeah,
So
yeah,
when I was competing no gi worlds as a purple belt, for example,
yeah.
our coaches told us, guys, you have a much better chance of becoming a world champion in the no gi because the talent pool is just smaller. This
Yeah,
was
for sure,
2014 or 15, I believe, something like this.
Yeah.
So back then, you had a lot better chances of becoming a world champion in the no-gi because it was just a lot smaller.
In IBJJF.
IBJJF.
And IBJJF crowns a few thousand world champions a year.
Right.
But ADCC crowns 8.
Yes. That's a
And
good point.
every 2 years.
This is something that I
every
feel
2
like
years.
Jiu-Jitsu offers, and it's really, really cool.
Yeah.
I mean, depending on how you look at it.
Yeah.
Anybody that starts Jiu-Jitsu, and I do mean anybody, can technically become a world champion.
Yes.
Yeah. So
Okay, would you consider yourself a gi or a no gi?
I enjoy both. I enjoy both for sure.
Yeah.
If I had a preference, I would go for the gi.
Okay.
Right? There's this big debate on the gi versus no gi, especially in Southeast Asia. I've seen
Yeah.
that the majority of gyms do no gi, which makes a lot of sense due to the weather.
Yes. Well, here definitely for sure.
I would like to declare
Yeah.
that in Southeast Asia, I've been to the sweatiest gym I've ever been to in my life. So currently, I've been to 120 academies, over
Yeah.
120 academies, over 35 plus countries.
Yes.
And I will happily declare that Southeast Asia has some of the sweatiest
No, for
gyms
sure. Yes.
I've seen in my life, to the
Without
extent where you finish a no-gi session and there are literal pools of sweat.
Yeah, I know
Not
that.
figuratively, literal pools of sweat
Yes.
on the mats.
For that reason, I only train in air-conditioned environments now. Pretty much, for the most part, for a few different reasons. But yes, you're right. But and part of that is because these people are dedicated to jiu-jitsu, and you'll have even white belts and blue belts on their street. Hey, let's just throw some mats down.
Right.
They don't have resources. They don't have air conditioning. Let's throw some mats down. Let's
Yeah.
get to training, guys. And they're watching videos on YouTube to learn the techniques, and that's a beautiful thing about jiu-jitsu. And here in Vietnam, I would say, or at least Saigon, probably like 70 or 80%.
Yeah. No-gi.
No-gi,
for sure.
I would guess, but
Yeah.
but I'm biased as
a wrestler,
a lot of folks,
of course.
But there are wrestlers who come into not many probably who come into jiu-jitsu, really love the gi, right? But
I feel like the main rock of this controversy, for example, is whether you're training pure jiu-jitsu or you're training with MMA or let's say street fighting or self-defense in mind. Because if you're training for an MMA mindset, in a way, having the gi is quote unquote redundant, right? Because in an MMA fight, obviously you don't have the gi, you have nothing to grab onto, you have nothing to do this. Nonetheless, factually, a lot of the biggest names in MMA, they all train in the gi, right? Some of them at least that I know of.
That's true. No,
So I feel like
true.
the biggest thing when you put the gi on is that it adds a layer of complexity. It adds a layer of thinking patterns that you're not used to without the gi.
I
know
do
what I
agree
mean?
with that.
Yeah.
I do agree with that.
If you're a big, strong, athletic guy, you could get away with things in the no-gi that you could have never gotten away with in the gi. You have extra friction. You have the war on the grips, which is a huge deal. And you have lapel wizardry of sorts, right?
Yeah.
So when I play the gi, I really enjoy playing with the lapel. I feel like it's an added value to everything that I do. And it
I agree
fucks
with
with
that.
people's minds.
No, that's true. I agree with all of that. What questions would you have to someone who prefers no gi over gi, or someone who doesn't even do gi at all? What questions would you ask that person?
Why?
Why?
My question is why. I mean, why choose just, there's the famous John Danaher saying where he started focusing on leg locks.
Yeah.
And he asked himself, in a way, why ignore 50% of the human body?
Yeah.
Right?
I remember
So it's a
that
famous
conversation.
saying. Yeah.
No, I've seen it.
So my question
and I
to
think-
someone who does only no-gi is,
Yeah.
why do just one discipline out of two existing ones?
Well, first of all, for me, I just don't like the gi.
There you go. That's okay.
I don't like the gi. And
That's the only thing that matters.
I started in the gi. I don't do jiu-jitsu for self-defense. I do jiu-jitsu or grappling or whatever you want to call it. I don't really care what it's called because it's the closest thing to wrestling, and I do it for sport.
Yeah.
It's a sport to me.
Fair enough.
It is meditation for me.
Yeah.
It is a community for me. I can go, I can get a good workout in, I can do it with the people I care about, and I can compete all in one sport, right? And there just happens to be this other side of it that's extremely traditional. And trust me, I've been to my fair share of gi jiu-jitsu classes. I've done a number of tournaments in the gi. I might do.
Did you
one
enjoy
a year.
it? Less than no-gi.
As soon, I remember so for example, in Medellin, my instructor was, he got his black belt from Kubrina himself.
Nice.
It's like, you need to do the gi, Zach, you need to do the gi. It's like, fine, I'll do it. So I trained for 6 weeks, and leading up to Jiu-Jitsu Con, I competed in both. And what I learned was how much I loved no gi. Like
Yeah.
I just couldn't wait. And then I come back,
shed
and,
it
and
off.
then there was another guy, and then, but the thing is, I just love no-gi, and I recognize that, jiu-jitsu is a very multifaceted
Right.
sport. I come from wrestling. It's not that multifaceted. We go on the mat and we wrestle and we try to put your mat on the back. That's it. We don't have belts. We don't have age groups. We don't really care. Oh,
And also, it's not really evolving as a sport. Correct me if I'm wrong. Wrestling has been pretty much the same for the past 50 years.
It's been largely the same for the last hundreds of years.
Right. Jiu-jitsu changes every single day.
That is true because it's only
Every
how
day
long has
somebody
it been?
makes up a new move or a new sweep or a new
That's
thing.
true. No, that's true.
So it's ever evolving in that
It
sense.
is You're
Yeah.
right because
And more so in the gi, by the way. Because
That-
when
no, I
you add
agree
an
with
extra layer of complexity, you have the endless world of changing grips, changing whatever.
Yeah.
Especially when you use the lapel or you get all these crazy shit.
I agree
Yeah.
with that. And I think that that's good for certain people.
Yeah. That's exactly what it
It's
is.
important for the growth of the sport.
Yeah.
The culture of gi jiu-jitsu, people really want their third stripe, and they'll go to practice, and that creates the culture is very different in the gi than in no gi.
For hobbyists,
For hobbyists, it's great.
it is extremely important to feel
Yes.
progression.
Exactly.
I mean, if you're
Exactly,
a 42-year-old dad that's going to the gym three
Yeah,
times a
that's
week,
true.
you're not planning on being a world champion, getting that stripe on your blue belt is
I agree
an
with you.
achievement that will pump up your chest and
Yes.
like make you feel better about yourself. But I think more importantly than anything, jiu-jitsu is the kind of sports that allows you to be a better person,
Yes.
a better father, a better husband, a better
Yes.
partner, a better pretty much everything. When you go to the gym, when you get rolling with heavier dudes, when you get smashed by a 120 kilo guy who's trying to kill you, with love of course, but he's trying to kill you, and he's
Yes.
lying on you and you're not breathing and you're experiencing some extreme difficulties,
Yeah.
going back home and dealing with some shit at work or a nasty boss or a yelling partner or
Yeah.
anything of that sort
Yes.
just minimizes into like you understand that you can become a more humble, more I'm trying to find the right word for that. It just makes you a better person, I
Yeah.
feel like. And more than anything, jiu-jitsu humbles you.
Of course.
Because
Of
you know
course.
around the corner there's always a guy to fold you up as much as you folded up the next guy next to you. Yeah?
Of course. And that kind of leads into our next point is, even though I don't like gi, I think that it should exist because it's important for the growth of the sport, and it applies to more people. It applies to a wider audience, and I've seen grandmothers, grandfathers get into jiu-jitsu, and the gi is a better option for them and things like that, right? And then we've got organizations around the world, gi gives more opportunities to people to get into the sport because people look at it and they see, okay, it's traditional, and some parents won't even, they wouldn't put their child into no-gi because it looks rough and stuff. Oh, it's okay. They're wearing the gi. It must be traditional. It must be,
It's
so
easier on the eyes.
Yeah, it's easier on the eyes. Exactly.
It's easier on the eyes.
And further, you've much more experience than myself and a lot of people watching the show. We have different organizations around the world that provide opportunities for athletes from certain different countries. And I think you mentioned the JJIF. Can you please help us understand that a little bit?
Yeah. So depending on each person and their knowledge within the jiu-jitsu world, so probably the most well-renowned, most prestigious organization in the world would be the IBJJF, International Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu Federation, a Brazil-oriented for-profit organization that does private competition. It's a for-profit organization. They're making money. They do a great job.
Excellent.
They're working to promote the sport in a professional way. But the most important aspect of that is that they are not recognized by governments.
Okay.
A government doesn't recognize the IBJJF as a legitimate or an international organization.
Yeah, okay.
On the other side of the scale, there are organizations such as the JJIF. So the JJIF is the Jiu-Jitsu International Federation.
Okay.
Originally created, if I remember correctly, in the 60s or the 70s, and was dedicated to Japanese Jiu-Jitsu.
Okay.
So it's even spelled a little bit different.
Okay.
It's spelled J-U, so Jiu-Jitsu.
Oh, that's
So-
why they do it here.
Yes.
I've seen that. I thought it was.
Yes,
Many
yes.
of us thought it was a
without the
misprint.
I in the Jew, it means Japanese Jiu-Jitsu. And so that organization has been around for a lot of years.
Yeah.
And throughout the years, that organization figured out that Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, or as they call it in Japanese, Niwaza, which translates to groundwork,
Okay.
is basically taking over the world, right? Everybody's interested in it. There's a big crowd to it. And so they've opened up an entire division dedicated to Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. And the biggest catch in the whole thing is that that's an organization that is well recognized by governments to have international and you can represent your country competing in this organization. And
So people I'm from a certain country.
Right.
I want to get, you're telling me it's possible for me to get funding
So-
from the government to.
I'm no authority when it comes to
Yeah.
that. I'm not representing any organization, nor am I
course.
representing anything in that.
No, of course. We're just
So
talking.
what happened is, in Israel, for example, early 2000s, late 2000s, the coach of the Israel national team basically figured out that the government funds athletes
Okay.
under certain organizations. So if you go compete in IBJJF, the government doesn't care. But if you go compete in JJIF and get reputable places and you get podium in these kind of international competitions, you could possibly get funded for training and competing international competitions in Jiu-Jitsu.
Okay.
This is Israel.
Yes.
And that has actually developed into something incredible, that we now have one of the strongest teams in Europe.
Very good.
Mainly because they're able to get funding from the government to pay athletes so that they less have to have an everyday job and focus on training Jiu-Jitsu 3 times a day.
That's excellent.
This translates into Southeast Asia as well.
Well, let's talk about briefly talk about your experience and what that meant to you and how you were able to travel around.
So
Briefly.
I was very fortunate to be a part of the Israel national team for a while, for a long while actually. I got my black belt from the head coach of the Israel national team, and especially 2019, we were traveling all over Europe competing. We did Paris, Rome, Madrid, Bucharest, Geneva, if I remember correctly.
Yep.
I think I do. And that was quite a credible experience, right?
Yes.
So after we did that for a while, basically my latest travel, I've been traveling for 7 months currently. I did about 6 months in Thailand. I was traveling all over Thailand, from the center to the north to the south, to the islands.
Yes.
And a local friend of mine that has a gym in Kopangan basically told me that this entire section of the JJIF organization, it is possible for Thai kids to be jiu-jitsu athletes and get a full ride for a scholarship in university. So you can be technically like a street kid without any family money or whatever. You can get your way into the Thai national team in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Of course, you have to train hard for it, but it's quite doable. And by doing that, you could actually go to university for free.
That's incredible.
And from the very little research I've done, which again, I'm not authority by any means when it comes to that.
Of course, no one's expecting you to.
Vietnam has the same arrangement. So in Vietnam...
But wait, before we go into that, you understand Thailand a little bit.
The what, sorry?
You understand how that works in Thailand?
Sure.
Generally, what does it take for someone to get, what's the process?
So as per my limited understanding with that, it takes about 4 or 5 competitions a year, and you need to place. You need to get podium. So once
Before you get to that point,
Yeah.
how do you like I'm a street kid, I've never done jiu-jitsu. How do I get to that funding? Like, how does JJIF, what does it take for JJIF in Thailand
Yeah.
or any country to fund athletes? Like, what's the process?
So as far as I'm aware, the process is you start competing at your own money. Nobody's gonna just like give you money before you have achievements.
Got it.
So
Roger
you
that.
start competing on your own money.
Okay.
You train on your own money. Some gyms, by the way, they offer sponsorships for like less privileged youth with the intent of getting them into high-level jiu-jitsu. And basically what's happening, they can train, they can compete, assuming that they get some good places in some competitions. Again, there's a certain criteria that I'm not sure what it is. But after they meet that criteria, you could potentially start getting some funding from the government. And again, this is not my home country, this is not my home turf.
Yeah.
This is as per the little research that I've done. But more than anything, it's an opportunity for less privileged youth or even young adults to be able to make a career out of grappling and without being like a big name. You know, I'm not talking Gordon Ryan, I'm not talking, these are big names that are making millions of what they're doing, and rightfully so. But you can talk about being someone that competes in some of these international competitions and actually making some sort of a living out of it.
I think that's a great point. I'm glad you bring that up, because here in Vietnam, we're all kind of working together to create opportunities for grapplers, whether it's local Vietnamese athlete or local Vietnamese athletes, grapplers, and foreigners as well. But this specifically applies to Vietnamese grapplers, okay? And I think that a lot of people don't know about it. I'm sure someone watching the show does. I'm not familiar with it. I've seen people wear things that are jiu-jitsu spelled the way you do it. Now things are starting to make sense. One of the better grapplers that I've had the pleasure of knowing, Qua. He's always wear the shirt. I thought he spelled it, but actually that's actually the correct way to spell it.
The Japanese way.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So something interesting.
What would you recommend? How could we find these people, and how could we promote this so that people understand that there's funding out there? We just got to get it.
So something very interesting that I saw in Vietnam. So like I said, I've been here for a week. I have been teaching in a few gyms. I've been to a few open mats. First of all, my biggest impression is that most of the gyms that I've been to in Vietnam have been 95% locals.
Yes.
So that means Vietnamese people love grappling. That means they go grapple. When I was teaching in Thailand, for example, it was the exact opposite. It was 95% foreigners and a very small percentage of Thai people.
Yes.
Right, which was, I don't know how or why it's like that. I'm assuming it has to do with their national sport of Muay Thai, right? Yes. But they actually have a very small number of Thai people training jiu-jitsu. In every gym that I've been to here, it is insane, just the amount of people that are Vietnamese, and they're good, man. Okay. They're some good grapplers.
So I think what I'm hearing you say is identify the local grapplers that have competed, and then identify people that are associated with the JJIF here in Vietnam, and get this conversation started to see if this is a possibility.
Man, absolutely. Like I feel like the first person to kind of figure out a system of how to like kind of find their way of getting this funded from the government. Imagine this could build up a gym.
Yeah, of
right.
course.
So if you're a gym owner or a head coach of a gym, and you have a youth team or a kids team or young adults team or whatever, and you figure out how to get a slice of that pie,
got it.
That means you can have a team of grapplers who are getting funded to train 3 times a day, which I can imagine is not a very common thing to happen in anywhere in the world, and specifically Southeast Asia.
I think that's a great point. I'm glad you brought that up. I think there are people watching the show. There are people in Vietnam who are aware of that process.
Yeah.
To where you can get that funding, you can get Vietnamese athletes funded to compete. I just don't know about it. I'm probably just ignorant about that, but and that's okay. And that kind of leads to what this thing that we see is the greater Vietnam martial arts community, right?
Which is getting bigger every day.
Which is getting bigger and bigger, and we're going to talk about that next. And that kind of leads us into the role of gods of martial arts here, which is why we're here. And so, as we know, grappling and jiu-jitsu needs to improve here in Southeast Asia, or at least it's not on the same level as North America. Striking and grappling is in North America, the UFC one championship pretty close. In Southeast Asia, I'd say the striking is here and the grappling is here. Now Vietnam, MMA has only been legal here, as you know, for 3 years. So MMA is exploding. So if someone wants to be a good MMA fighter 10 years from now, they need to start learning grappling now when they're 13, 14 years old.
Yeah.
And they could take advantage of this program that
1,000,000%.
speaking
Absolutely. Yeah.
about.
So I can't help but feel that this all coexists, right?
Yeah.
So first of all, this promotion, the Gods of Martial Arts,
Yes.
they're doing something that I've never seen in my life.
Okay.
When you watch a video of Gods of Martial Art, you know by any means that that's a video of Gods of Martial Art.
Yes.
When you do, you see a ring that's a hexagon. It's not an octagon.
Okay.
It's not a cage.
Yep.
It's traditional hemp rope. Each one of the poles is like, I don't know about hand carved, but like definitely very decorated in an Asian fashion. So
Yes.
you see something, you know it's a unique caption of things. Yeah. You know it's not one championship. You know it's not the UFC. It's Gods of Martial Arts. So that's a very unique promotion in that sense. Another thing that you've told me about, so my connection to this organization and to this promotion is basically you, right? For the people watching at home, I was lucky enough to travel into Vietnam and meet this wonderful guy that we just became instant friends. We started rolling with one another. And this is, other than the fact that it's the flavor of life, like traveling and meeting new
Yes.
friends around the world and training with them, he's the one that exposed me to this promotion. And he also told me how they treat the fighters.
Yeah, they treat fighters.
So that's the incredible part, because I feel what makes the fighting sport interesting is not only the fight, but also the stories behind the fighters.
Yes.
If you're aware of how someone was brought up, what's their story, why they're fighting, or towards what end are they fighting, if they're trying to feed their family, if they're trying to like make it out of less privileged life circumstances. These are all things that make the fight interesting from the viewer's perspective. But more than anything, they pay the fighters more than I've heard almost any organization pay for non-extremely high level, fighting.
Just a snapshot on what that looks like. I mean, you got these Muay Thai fighters in Thailand, these Kun Khmer fighters in Cambodia, and they're fighting for $10 a weekend. $10 a weekend.
That's
and then you come
insane.
here. You come here and you can fight. If you win 2 or 3 fights in Gods of Martial Arts, you can win probably the equivalent of 2 or 3 years salary.
That's insane.
And you're going to be celebrated, and you're going to put it in the best production possible. We're going to tell your story. And
so man, even this, where we're sitting right now, this is Hollywood-esque production value.
Yeah.
This is,
well, there's a reason for that.
yeah, for sure, I can imagine. And this is like high-level stuff, and I can't help but feel that this is a stepping stone towards promoting the culture of MMA, and in my case, I'm a jiu-jitsu guy, right?
Yeah.
So promoting the culture of Brazilian jiu-jitsu, even inside the ring, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So I'm very lucky in that sense. My journey has taken me many places. My journey has taken me to most continents on Earth. Multiple gyms, meeting beautiful, incredible people. And I feel like the community that martial arts can create is extremely unique.
Yeah, exactly.
The human connections that you make when you sweat and bleed and fight with other people on the mats creates connections that are very hard to create otherwise.
Of course. and I think you kind of bring up a good point on gods of martial arts, and we have the MMA promotions, the UFC One Championship and things like that, and the UFC is obviously right now at least the monopoly of MMA promotions. But as we know, it's the way the fighters are treated, and the ancient martial arts that mixed MMA comes from isn't emphasized. It isn't a priority, I guess. And now it's possible that in this next era of MMA, place the emphasis on treating the fighters well and celebrating all of these different martial arts that come from all around the world, and that contribution to mixed martial arts. So I think, would you say that might be it's possible that we have a new era of MMA, and it's
1,000,000%.
And
not just MMA.
Arts?
I think this is an era where fighters in general are starting to be treated differently, right?
Okay.
Because so far we've had boxing. We've had boxing, traditional Western boxing, where nowadays, the bigger names, they get paid hundreds of millions of dollars.
Yeah.
Way, way, way below that is, let's say, mixed martial arts. UFC, the most prestigious organization in the world, pays a fraction of what it pays to fight in boxing, right? A fraction, literally.
That is true.
Literally a fraction. Yeah. But now is starting a brand new era represented by guys like Craig Jones, for example, that is revolutionizing the sport of grappling, right? And is actually paying the athletes.
He didn't pay him just a little bit more.
Right.
He paid him 100 times more than the Olympics of grappling, which
there
is
you go.
ADCC.
So ADCC was paying tens of thousands of dollars. $10,000.
Was the most you could make.
I think in podium you would have gotten like 40,000. No?
If 40,000 if you win the main event against Gordon.
All right.
Or
gotcha.
Andre or whoever it is at the time. But first place 10,000, and once you get to fourth place, it's 1,000.
Right. Yeah. Well,
so what's $10,000?
And there's no show up money, or was there
no show money?
Okay, that's
not now. Well, in 2022 there wasn't.
Gotcha.
But there was in 2024. I wonder why that was. The pay was all over the place in 2024.
Yeah. So I think we're experiencing kind of a renaissance.
Yes.
Well, again, I come from the world of jiu-jitsu.
Yeah,
so we experience a renaissance of the world of jiu-jitsu. And the funny part is, not only did Craig Jones revolutionize the sport of grappling, but now are popping up all kinds of promotions worldwide that are doing the same. Yeah, there's even a promotion back home in Israel that's quite humoristically called GSI. Yeah. And
really?
100%.
Tell us about that.
This guy is called Gal. Gal is a common Israeli name. It means wave. And this guy takes a page out of Craig Jones's book. He also treats everything very humoristically and very lightheartedly. And he's just an overall really, really good guy. And he took a page out of Craig Jones's book, and he created a grappling promotion also that kind of encourages the fighters to post kind of funny, humoristic videos towards their fights and stuff like that. But the main thing is, he puts on a show, first of all. It's an actual big live show.
Okay.
And he pays the fighters amounts of money that have never been paid before in grappling events in the history of Israel.
Yeah, that's incredible.
So he pays.
Is this an outside arena? What does it look like?
So the venue itself, I believe they've had two different events so far in different venues. But again, it is a show. So you have VIP with drinks, you have stands, ticket sales. All the profits go to the athletes themselves.
Okay.
So this guy is basically working his ass off to promote the sport in Israel, to promote the culture of jiu-jitsu in Israel, alongside with good sportsmanship. So it's really, really cool to see these athletes. There's no actual trash talk. There's no I'm gonna fuck you up. I'm gonna do. It's a very lightheartedly you can see the people just enjoying to fight each other and knowing that they're promoting the sport. And whilst paying really, really large sums amount of money to these people, to the athletes. He's just doing something incredible.
Yeah.
He's promoting the sport in a way
Yeah.
that no one has ever done in Israel, specifically jiu-jitsu. Yeah, I'm not talking MMA. I'm
Yeah.
not talking.
That's a good point. And it just kind of hit me that two big things are happening in grappling right now. And it's number one, athlete pay, and number two, making grappling fun to watch.
Yes.
Grappling's boring to watch, guys. Let's be honest. It's boring to watch.
The rule of thumb has always been if you don't do jiu-jitsu, you
Yeah.
don't understand what's happening in jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And I mean, to be honest, like I've been doing jiu-jitsu or grappling, submission wrestling, and I don't really watch a lot of it. There are people in our community. Who really watch it and study it. You know,
It's
at
a learning
at like
opportunity.
a doctorate level.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not one of those guys. I'm glad there are people in the community here, such as Corey, such as Vince, that I can learn from, to save me hours and hours and hours every
Yeah.
weekend. You know, I mean, these guys literally have like textbooks in their office
Yeah.
and things like that. And so the themes in grappling are paying the grapplers, grappler pay, athlete pay, and making it fun to watch, and making it a show that even if you don't grapple, it's fun to watch. Like
Right.
like Craig Jones Invitational, you know, the format was intentional. You
Sure.
got 3 rounds. That's kind of MMA. It's MMA and wrestling. So okay, I understand that. And you're only watching one.
Yeah.
Whereas ADCC, you had to pay $150 just to watch Flow Grappling, and now you're watching 4 at once. And which one do I like?
Yeah.
How do I pick which one to watch?
Yeah.
You know, so and then in MMA, we're seeing something similar. Whereas MMA has always kind of emphasized the show part of it. You know, that's what it's,
I mean,
what it
these.
is.
It came from businessmen. It came from
Yes,
someone promoting,
yeah.
you know,
Yeah, that's a good
almost
point.
wrestling, like fake wrestling type situation where you have somebody enter and like you got the explosions and you got. But I think what Craig Jones has done, that's the most remarkable. He made it fun to watch even outside the ring.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? He makes it so interesting and so funny to watch. And again, this guy in Israel took a page out of that book, and he makes these funny videos, and you create a hype that you're so excited for the fights even before the fights even started, you know? Not to
Yeah.
mention like a rule set that's very aimed for submission, to not have anything go for the judge's decision. It's very interesting to see, and I feel like it's revolutionizing the sport, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Because you can handpick, also if you're doing like a tournament, you can handpick the guys that you want competing. It's not just like an open tournament. And then you get sponsors. Back in my day, getting a sponsor in jiu-jitsu was non-existing. You get all the federations that are doing competitions, you get somebody who wins this fight, he now gets free registration to all the other competitions.
That's
right?
excellent.
Which is, you're able to promote yourself, you're able to go compete. Paying registration for competition is fucking expensive, you know what I mean?
That's true. That's true.
So they're giving opportunities for everybody, and that's quite
Yeah.
remarkable.
Yeah, excellent. We're nearing the end of the show, but just a few other questions I'd like to ask, just to get your perspective, since you have a global perspective on
Please.
on jiu-jitsu and MMA. I certainly don't have that. What is the role of grappling in jiu-jitsu in MMA, and in what you've seen so far?
So I feel like many places in the world, each place has their focus, right? When MMA came out as a sport on its own, right? We've all watched UFC 1, we've all watched UFC 2, Royce Gracie. So even the story of the Gracie family, where they're just, there's a legend in the 1920s where the Gracies published an ad in a newspaper in Rio, and the ad said, "Would you like your arm broken? Come down to the Gracie
okay.
Academy," and this and that.
Well,
So
that is
like,
interesting.
yeah. So they were just basically starting the whole thing by, trying to prove to the world who's the best, basically.
Yes.
And so in the beginning of the sport, no one really knew what was grappling per se, or Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu specifically.
Yep.
And it kind of came into on its own. Now, if you're not doing Jiu-Jitsu, obviously you can't go into the cage.
Yes.
But I think we all know that the art form that dominates, the cage the most in modern time MMA would be wrestling.
Wrestling, yes.
Yes. Because wrestling is the aspect of things that allows you to decide where the fight takes place.
Yes, it is.
Right? So
You
we used to
you
have...
still need striking, though.
Yeah,
You
for
still
sure.
need striking and submissions.
We used to have pure grappling-based mixed martial artists. Damien Maya was a great example. Roger
Yes.
Gracie was a great example.
Yeah.
These were people that were MMA fighters, for sure, but I wouldn't say the entire game, but the majority of their game was based around taking someone to the ground and being that much better than them on the ground to have just played with them, submitting countless amounts of people.
And taking away all their weapons.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I feel like this is not something that can really happen today.
Yeah, for sure.
But I also feel like you cannot really step into the professional octagon without being a minimum high-level purple belt,
Yep.
right?
Yeah, you're right. Absolutely. And then, there are a lot of people. There's a lot of people who are kind of a little intimidated to join martial arts because, for whatever reason is in their mind. And one of the great things that we have in Saigon is actually what you're wearing on your shirt right now.
Yes, sir.
If you can, maybe your knee is blocking the camera. But we have Ram Muay Thai, but now we just started a jiu-jitsu program there, and you were able to kind of look at that and experience that. You want to talk about that a little bit?
So I feel like when somebody's thinking about approaching a martial arts gym for the first time in their life, there's a lot of mental gymnastics that's going on, right? Because especially for guys, I think, when you walk into a room that is full of people that you know for a fact are better than you in the martial arts sense of things, and possibly, depending on who you are or what size you are, bigger or stronger, and it's a scary thought. It's a scary feeling to walk into this room and kind of put yourself in there. But what I always tell people who are contemplating whether to start martial arts or not is to remember a very simple fact, is this room is not full of people who are trying to kill you. I've met people, which I ask them, like, okay, why don't you start training martial arts? It's like, oh, I don't want to get punched, I don't want to get killed in the gym, And I'm like, bro, nobody's trying to kill you.
Yeah.
Nobody's trying to hurt you. Nobody's trying to prove that they're better than you. This is a group of people who are focused on improving themselves and their training partners daily. And that's the main goal. The main goal is to have fun, get better physically, mentally, becoming a better person today than you were yesterday, which is one of the mantras that I constantly get from Jiu-Jitsu. Just be better today than you were yesterday in any type of small scale.
Yep. Did you feel that at RAM when you experienced
100%, man.
What was it like there?
It's a room full of awesome people that their goal is to improve one another.
Yes,
Yeah,
exactly.
and this is what I feel like one of the best things in Jiu-Jitsu in general, in martial arts as well. Any martial art that you'll do, it's an art form that helps you connect with people. Some of the best friends I have in my life are from the Jiu-Jitsu world.
Yeah.
And just, again, my motto is that it makes you a better person. It makes you a better father, a better husband, a better partner. It humbles you in a way that allows you to step into someone else's shoes and look at the world through their perspective, hopefully.
Of course.
And I can't help but recommend just to jump in the gym closest to your home.
Yeah, absolutely. And also one, if you're a beginner and you want to go into a fun fit Muay Thai gym or something that's fun, you want to go and have fun when you go do jiu-jitsu. You don't want to get knocked out.
Yes, sir.
The first time I ever did MMA, I was in a cage with a pro fighter, and I just got punched in the face a whole bunch of times. And for that reason, I'd already wrestled and everything like that. And I was like, man, I just don't want to do this striking thing. And it wasn't until I went to my 4th or 5th Muay Thai gym to where I was like, this is actually fun. This is cool. You have to make martial arts fun, and you have to find the right gym, whether it's grappling, whether it's Muay Thai or something like that. It just has to be fun, and when you have fun, you bond.
There you go.
With people.
The hardest thing in martial arts,
Yeah.
and I think you'll agree with me, is to show up.
For sure.
if you show up to class, you've already done 80% of the work.
Yeah.
Because you actively chose to be in the gym rather than sitting at home watching TV or eating some snacks or going to the beach.
Yeah.
So choosing to show up for the gym and
Got
work your ass off, you've already done half the work, really.
Sure.
Which is what I feel made my jiu-jitsu journey special.
For sure.
I've trained twice a day
Of course.
for over a decade, and
Yeah.
it became such a prominent part of my life. I can't do without it now.
Yeah, for sure. And we thank you. And we're honored to have you on the show because of your global perspective. Briefly,
Please.
what you've seen a lot of martial arts around the world in 35 countries. What is one or two things here in Vietnam that we could do to bring our community together more and create opportunities, specifically the people here?
So I feel one of the best things local communities can do, first of all, is kind of citywide open mats,
Okay.
where you find the biggest space available. You make it into an event. You make it into a thing where you might have what's called an interclub. Interclub is like a friendly competition between gyms, followed by some acai, some music, celebrating well, of course, Brazilian culture has to do with Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, right? So that's definitely one of the biggest things in my mind, to just bring the community together.
Okay. So
It's really,
community events.
yes, so community events and, again, local promotions.
Okay.
To have any type of a local promotion that kind of brings the sport together, right? So if you're able to make these kind of like smaller tournaments and or get together, to be honest, seminars, when you bring a high level person to teach some techniques that is common for everyone,
Okay.
I can't help but feel that like it's really something that is able to bring some people together. Some big names
for sure.
to show up, teach some techniques.
And we can bring other communities together, like the striking community and things like that. Great. Thank you so much.
Man, my absolute pleasure. Thank you for having me.
For being on the show. And I
appreciate
think so we covered some important topics. You've introduced some ideas to us. You know, how can we get more opportunities for grapplers that's going to lead to grappler growth, you know, when you're at a young age, leading into their mixed martial arts career, leading into them having a better chance at competing in MMA promotions such as Gods of Martial Arts, so that we can put the international spotlight on Vietnam martial arts here, and then create opportunities to where even if you come from the street, so no matter what town or village or anything that you come from, you have the opportunity to be a professional martial artist here in Vietnam. And that wraps up episode 5 of Beyond the Fight, which means we can dive into all of the different aspects of martial arts. We got a few events coming up this month. On 17 May is going to be the 4th event of Gods of Martial Arts. Is going to be here at Gods of Martial Arts headquarters, the same location as Lean Foam. And this is going to be our first Vietnamese-only event here here in Ho Chi Minh City. And the following weekend on 24 May is going to be our first Gods of Martial Arts international event that has ever taken place. Okay, as we know, last year was all Vietnamese. This year we introduced Cambodia, Laos, Malaysia, Myanmar, and Thailand into the mix, introducing a lot of different types of ancient martial arts. Remember, don't miss the show on 17 May, just a few weeks away, here at Gods of Martial Arts headquarters, and we will see you there. Bar,
Thank you so much for having me, my friend.
thank you so much.
I appreciate it.
It's an honor to meet guys like you, and just
Thank you.
a new idea. Yes.
I appreciate it a lot.
So
Thanks for having me here.
Yes, and I think that wraps up the show.